My name is Gloria Chambers, and I'm 71 years old. I've lived in this house, the house I bought with my late husband 45 years ago, for most of my adult life. I raised my son Trevor here, and for the past 8 years, I've shared it with Trevor and his wife Crystal after they fell on hard times. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the moment I stood in my own living room last Thursday evening, listening to Trevor and Crystal tell me I needed to leave. Not temporarily, permanently. "Mom," Trevor said, not meeting my eyes, "Crystal and I have been talking. We think it's time for you to move out. Find your own place. We need our space." I stood there, dish towel still in my hands from washing their dinner dishes, and looked at my son. The boy I'd raised alone after his father died. The man I'd let move into my house when he lost his job. The son whose mortgage I'd been secretly paying for the past 3 years. "This is my house," I said quietly. Crystal spoke up, her voice sharp. "Actually, Gloria, we checked with a lawyer. Since we've been living here for 8 years and paying rent to you, we have tenant rights, and we're exercising them. We're giving you 60 days notice to vacate." 60 days to vacate, my own house. "It's the law," Crystal said with a shrug. "We looked it up." I looked at Trevor, waiting for him to say something, anything, to tell his wife this was insane, that this was his mother's house. But he just looked down at his feet. And that's when I made a decision. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I simply said, "I understand, I'll start packing." Trevor looked up, surprised. "Really? You're not going to fight this?" "No, if you want me out, I'll go." Crystal smiled, satisfied. "Good, we thought you'd make this difficult." "I'm not going to make anything difficult. I'll be out by the end of the week." "The end of the week? We said 60 days. "I know what you said, but I'd rather leave now than spend 2 months living with people who want me gone." What they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that I wasn't just packing my clothes when I went upstairs that night. I was packing something else, something that would change everything, something that would make them realize exactly what they'd done. Because you see, this house, the house they thought they could take from me, it wasn't in my name anymore. I'd transferred the deed 8 months ago, to someone they'd never suspect. And when they found out who owned their home now, they'd understand the biggest mistake of their lives. But before I tell you what I packed, before I reveal who really owned the house, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that subscribe button. Click it right now. Then smash that like button, because this story is going to show you what happens when adult children try to push out the parent who gave them everything. Turn on those notifications, that bell icon, because you need to see what happens when a quiet mother packs more than just clothes. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. What city? What state? What country? I want to know who's here with me today. Because what I did when my son told me to leave his house, my house, it's going to show you that silence can be more powerful than screaming. Now let me take you back to the beginning. Let me tell you how a mother who owned her house outright ended up being told to leave by her own son. To understand what happened, you need to understand my life with Trevor. I married Richard Chambers when I was 23. We bought this house when I was 26, a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial in a good neighborhood. We paid $45,000 for it back in 1980. Today, it's worth about $650,000. Richard and I had Trevor when I was 28. We were happy. Richard worked as an engineer. I worked as a school secretary. We had a good life. When Trevor was 12, Richard died. Heart attack at 41. Sudden, devastating. I raised Trevor alone from then on. Worked full-time. Took on extra jobs to make sure Trevor had everything he needed. Paid off the mortgage by the time Trevor was in high school. Trevor went to college, got a degree in business, married Crystal when he was 27. They seemed happy at first. But then Trevor lost his job. The company he worked for went bankrupt. He couldn't find another position at his salary level. Trevor and Crystal had bought a house they couldn't really afford. They were drowning in debt, about to lose everything. "Mom," Trevor said 8 years ago, "we're in trouble. We're going to lose the house. We can't make the payments. We don't know what to do." What about Crystal's income? I asked. She worked as a real estate agent. The market's terrible. She's barely making anything. Mom, we're desperate. What do you need? Can we move in with you? Just temporarily. Until we get back on our feet, we'd pay rent. Help with expenses, it would just be for a few months. I looked at my son, at his desperation, at his fear of losing everything. Of course you can move in, but you don't need to pay rent. You're my son. Just save your money and get back on your feet. Are you sure? I'm sure. This house is too big for just me anyway. It'll be nice to have family here again. So Trevor and Crystal moved in. They took 2 bedrooms, one for sleeping, one as a home office for Crystal. They brought their furniture, their belongings, made themselves at home. At first, they were grateful, helpful. Crystal would cook sometimes. Trevor would help with yard work. They'd thank me constantly. But a few months turned into a year, then 2 years, then 5. And somewhere along the way, gratitude turned into entitlement. Crystal stopped cooking. Trevor stopped helping with the house. They'd leave messes for me to clean. They'd have friends over without asking me. They'd make house decisions without consulting me. Mom, we're painting the living room. I like the living room color as it is. Well, Crystal doesn't. We're changing it. But it's my house. And we live here too. We should have a say. Little by little, they took over. The house stopped feeling like mine. It felt like I was a guest in my own home. 3 years ago, I overheard a conversation between Trevor and Crystal. When is your mom going to move out? Crystal asked. This house is too nice to be wasting on an old woman living alone. She's not living alone. We're here. You know what I mean. This is a family house. We should have it. We could have kids here, build our life here. It is her house, Crystal. For now, but eventually you'll inherit it, right? Why not just speed up the process? Encourage her to move to a senior apartment or something. I can't just kick my mother out. I'm not saying kick her out. I'm saying help her see that she'd be happier in a smaller place. Then we could have this house. We've been living here for 5 years. It feels like hours already. I felt sick listening to them plot to push me out of my own home. But I didn't confront them. Not yet. Instead, I started planning. I called my attorney, Martin Wells. He'd handled Richard's estate and had been my lawyer for years. Martin, I need to protect myself. My son and his wife are living with me, and I'm worried they're going to try to take my house. How could they take your house? It's in your name, paid off. I don't know, but they're getting ideas, talking about me moving out so they can have it. I want to make sure that if something happens to me, or if they try something legal, my house is protected. What do you want to do? I want to transfer the deed, put the house in someone else's name, someone I trust completely. Who? My brother's daughter. My niece, Jessica. She's like a daughter to me. She'd never try to take advantage. You're sure about this? Transferring the deed means you won't legally own the house anymore. I know, but I trust Jessica, and I want to make sure Trevor and Crystal can't manipulate their way into ownership. 8 months ago, I transferred the deed of my house to my niece Jessica. She was shocked when I told her. Aunt Gloria, are you sure? This is your house. I'm sure, sweetie. I want it protected. Trevor and Crystal have been talking about getting me to move out so they can have it. This way, they can't. But if the house is in my name, what about you? We'll draw up a document. You're holding the house in trust for me. I have the right to live here for the rest of my life. And if anything happens to me, the house goes to you, not Trevor. Why not Trevor? Because he's shown me he doesn't deserve it. He's taken me for granted. Let his wife talk about pushing me out. I raised him better than this. Jessica reluctantly agreed. The deed was transferred. Legally, she owned my house now. But we had a private trust agreement that protected my right to live there. I didn't tell Trevor and Crystal. Why would I? They didn't need to know. For the next 8 months, things got progressively worse. Crystal started treating me like a roommate she didn't like. She'd make comments about my age, my habits, my presence. Gloria, why do you watch TV so loud? It's annoying. Gloria, Can you eat dinner in your room tonight? We're having friends over and the dining room is for our guests. Gloria, we need to talk about boundaries. This is our space too. You can't just use the kitchen whenever you want. Trevor would occasionally defend me, but mostly, he stayed silent. Let Crystal say whatever she wanted. I bit my tongue, stayed quiet, bided my time. Then, 2 months ago, I discovered something that changed everything. I was looking for a pen in Trevor's home office when I found documents, mortgage documents, for a house I didn't know they owned. Confused, I looked closer. The address was my address, my house. Trevor and Crystal had taken out a mortgage on my house, $400,000, my house that had been paid off completely. How was that possible? I called Martin immediately. Martin, how could Trevor take out a mortgage on my house? The house isn't even in my name anymore. That's impossible, unless, do they have access to any of your financial documents? They could have. I keep paperwork in my desk, but the house is in Jessica's name. How could they mortgage it? Let me make some calls. I'll get to the bottom of this. Martin called back 3 hours later. Gloria, I have bad news. Someone committed fraud. They forged documents making it appear you still own the house, then forged your signature on mortgage paperwork. Trevor and Crystal got $400,000 by fraudulently mortgaging property they don't own. That's illegal. Very illegal. We need to report this to the police, and we need to notify the mortgage company that the loan was obtained through fraud. What happens to Trevor and Crystal? They go to prison. This is mortgage fraud. It's a federal crime. I sat there, stunned. My own son had committed fraud, had forged documents, had stolen $400,000 by mortgaging my house without my knowledge or permission. Martin, I need time to think about this. Gloria, you need to report this. If you don't, you could be seen as complicit. I'll report it. I just need a few days to figure out how I want to handle this. For 2 weeks, I wrestled with what to do. Report my own son for fraud, let him go to prison. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Trevor and Crystal had forged my signature, had committed a federal crime, had stolen from me, from my house, from my legacy. And then, last Thursday, they made the decision easy for me. Mom, we need to talk. We sat in the living room. Crystal had a smug look on her face. Trevor looked uncomfortable but determined. Mom, Crystal and I have been talking. We think it's time for you to move out. I almost laughed. They were kicking me out of my own house, the house they'd fraudulently mortgaged. This is my house, I said calmly. Actually, Crystal said, pulling out papers, we checked with a lawyer, since we've lived here for 8 years and have been paying you rent. You haven't paid me rent in 8 years. We have receipts that say otherwise. She showed me receipts. Fake receipts showing monthly payments of $1,200 for 8 years. Receipts I'd never seen because they'd never actually paid me anything. More fraud, more forgery. Since we've been tenants for 8 years, Crystal continued, we have tenant rights, and we're exercising them. We're giving you 60 days notice to vacate. I looked at Trevor. You agree with this? He wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom, we just think it's time. You're getting older. You'd be happier in a senior community. And Crystal and I need space to build our life. Build your life, in my house. It's our house now, Crystal said firmly. Legally, we've been here 8 years. We pay rent, we have rights. That's when I made my decision. I would report them, all of it. The mortgage fraud, the forged receipts, everything. But I wouldn't tell them yet. I understand, I said calmly. If you want me out, I'll go. Really? Trevor looked surprised. You're not going to fight this? No, if you want me gone, I'll leave. Good, Crystal said, satisfied. We thought you'd be difficult. I'm not going to be difficult. I'll be out by the end of the week. That night I went upstairs and started packing. Clothes, photos, personal items. But I also packed something else. I packed copies of every document, the deed transfer showing Jessica owned the house, the mortgage documents showing Trevor and Crystal's fraud, The trust agreement showing my right to live here. The fake rent receipts showing their forgery. I packed evidence of 8 years of lies, of fraud, of theft. And I called Martin. I'm ready to report them, all of it. The mortgage fraud, the forgery, everything. Are you sure? This will likely send them to prison. I'm sure. They just told me to leave my own house, used fake receipts to claim tenant rights. I'm done protecting them. I'll file the police report first thing tomorrow. Good, and Martin, don't tell them yet. I want to be gone before they find out. The next morning, Friday morning, I started loading my car. Trevor and Crystal watched from the window, probably celebrating their victory. I made trip after trip, carrying boxes, loading furniture from my bedroom, taking everything that was mine. Crystal came outside as I was loading the last box. Leaving already. I thought you'd take the full 60 days. Why would I stay where I'm not wanted? Smart choice. Where are you going? To stay with my niece Jessica. Jessica, the one with the tiny apartment. She has a guest room. I'll be fine. Well, goodbye, Gloria. Thanks for finally doing the right thing. I looked at Crystal, at her smug satisfaction, at her certainty that she'd won. Goodbye, Crystal. I hope you enjoy the house. Oh, we will, trust me. I drove away without looking back. That afternoon, I was at Jessica's apartment when I got a call from Martin. Gloria, I filed the police report. The detective said they'll be executing a search warrant tomorrow morning. They'll arrest Trevor and Crystal for mortgage fraud. Good. There's more. I contacted the mortgage company, told them the loan was fraudulent. They're initiating foreclosure proceedings immediately. And since Trevor and Crystal can't prove they actually own the house, because they don't, they're being evicted. Evicted from my house. From Jessica's house, technically. And yes, they have 30 days to vacate. I almost laughed. Trevor and Crystal had given me 60 days to leave my own house. Now they had 30 days to leave a house they never owned. When will they find out? The police will inform them during the arrest, and the mortgage company is sending an eviction notice today. That evening, my phone started ringing. Trevor calling over and over. I didn't answer. He left voicemails. Mom, pick up, we need to talk, something's wrong. The mortgage company called. They're saying our loan was fraudulent. Mom, call me back. I deleted them without listening to the full messages. Crystal called next. Gloria, what did you do? You need to call us back right now. There are serious accusations being made. We need to talk. I blocked her number. The next morning, Saturday, Jessica called me. Aunt Gloria, there are police cars at your house. What's happening? They're arresting Trevor and Crystal for mortgage fraud. Oh my God. Don't worry, sweetie. Everything's fine. In fact, everything's perfect. Later that day, Martin called. Trevor and Crystal were arrested this morning. They're being charged with mortgage fraud, forgery, and identity theft. Bail was set at $50,000 each. Did they make bail? Not yet. They're calling everyone they know trying to raise the money. In the house. Foreclosure proceedings have begun. They have 30 days to vacate. After that, the sheriff will forcibly evict them. I felt satisfaction wash over me. Not joy, this was my son we were talking about, but satisfaction that justice was being served. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. That evening, I sat in Jessica's guest room thinking about everything that had happened. My son was in jail, his wife was in jail, and I'd put them there. Part of me felt guilty. He was still my son, still the boy I'd raised. But another part, a bigger part, felt vindicated. They'd tried to steal my house, had committed fraud, had forged my signature, had told me to leave my own home. My phone rang, an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mom, Trevor's voice was shaky, desperate. How did you call me? I thought you were in jail. I am. They give you one phone call. Mom, please. You have to help us. You have to tell them this is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Trevor, you took out a $400,000 mortgage on my house. You forged documents. You forged my signature. That's not a misunderstanding. That's fraud. We needed the money. We were drowning in debt. Mom, I'm sorry. I know it was wrong, but we were desperate. So desperate that you then told me to leave. Used fake rent receipts to claim tenant rights in my own house. Silence. You didn't think I'd find out about the mortgage, did you? You thought you'd take the money, kick me out, and I'd never know you'd stolen from me. It wasn't stealing. It was going to be my house eventually anyway. I was just accelerating the timeline. Accelerating the timeline. Trevor, do you hear yourself? You committed federal crimes because you felt entitled to my house before I died. Mom, please. They're saying we could go to prison for 10 years. Please. Tell them you gave us permission. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Please. I thought about all the years I'd sacrificed for him, all the times I'd put his needs first, all the ways I'd protected him from consequences. No. What? No, Trevor, I'm not going to lie for you. You did this. You face the consequences. But I'm your son. And you treated me like garbage. You let your wife talk about pushing me out of my house. You helped her commit fraud. You told me to leave the house I've lived in for 45 years. The house your father and I bought together. The house where I raised you. You treated that like it meant nothing. I said I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough. Not this time. You're 39 years old, Trevor. You're not a child making mistakes. You're a grown man who committed crimes, and you need to face what you've done. I can't believe you're doing this to me. You're my mother. You're supposed to help me. I helped you your whole life. I raised you alone after your father died. I worked extra jobs to give you opportunities. I let you live in my house rent-free for 8 years. I did everything for you, and you repaid me by trying to steal from me. If you don't help us, we'll go to prison. Is that what you want? Your son in prison? What I want is for you to take responsibility for your actions, something I apparently failed to teach you. I hung up before he could respond. Jessica knocked on my door. Aunt Gloria, are you okay? I heard you on the phone. I'm fine, sweetheart, just processing everything. Do you want to talk about it? Not yet, but thank you. She left, and I sat there thinking about Trevor's words. You're my mother. You're supposed to help me. He was right about one thing. I was his mother. But being a mother didn't mean protecting him from the consequences of his actions. Sometimes, it meant letting him face those consequences so he could learn and grow. Even if it was 30 years too late. The next day, Sunday, Trevor's friend Michael called me. Mrs. Chambers, this is Michael Torres, Trevor's friend from college. I know who you are, Michael. Trevor asked me to call you. He and Crystal can't make bail. They need $100,000 total, $50,000 each. Trevor said you have money. He's hoping you'll post bail for them. No. Mrs. Chambers, please. They're in jail. They're scared. Trevor says if you just bail them out, you all can sit down and work this out like a family. There's nothing to work out. They committed crimes. They need to face the legal system. But they're your family. Family doesn't commit fraud against each other. Family doesn't try to steal each other's homes. Michael, I appreciate you trying to help Trevor. You're a good friend, but this isn't something I'm going to fix for him. He said you were being vindictive, that you've always favored your niece over him. Favored Jessica? I raised Trevor alone. I gave him everything. Jessica is just the only family member who hasn't tried to take advantage of me. Trevor said Jessica is the one who really owns the house, that you signed it over to her just to spite him. Is that what he's telling people, that I did this out of spite? He said you transferred the house to Jessica 8 months ago because you knew he and Crystal needed help, that you deliberately cut him out. I laughed bitterly. I transferred the house 8 months ago because I overheard Crystal and Trevor talking about pushing me out. I protected my asset, and I'm glad I did because look what happened. They tried to mortgage it fraudulently. Mrs. Chambers, please, just think about it. Trevor's your son, don't you love him? Of course I love him. That's why this hurts so much. but loving someone doesn't mean enabling their bad behavior. Goodbye, Michael. Over the next week, I received calls and messages from everyone Trevor and Crystal knew. Friends, former coworkers, even Crystal's parents, who I'd met only a handful of times. Crystal's mother, Diane, was particularly hostile. "You're a vindictive old woman. You set them up. You transferred the house just to trap them." I transferred the house to protect it, and they walked into this trap all by themselves. They borrowed money using the house as collateral. That's not fraud. It is when you don't own the house. It is when you forge signatures. It is when you lie to a bank about ownership. That's literally the definition of fraud. You could drop the charges. You could tell the police it was a misunderstanding. But it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate, calculated. They knew exactly what they were doing. I hope you're happy. My daughter is in jail because of you. Your daughter is in jail because of your daughter's choices. Don't blame me for that. She hung up cursing at me. Jessica was worried about me. Aunt Gloria, all these people calling and harassing you, maybe you should change your number. Maybe, but then they just show up here. Better to deal with it by phone. Are you sure about all this? About pressing charges? He's your son. I'm sure. Jessica, if I don't do this, Trevor will never learn. He'll think he can do whatever he wants without consequences. That I'll always bail him out. But prison, that's a harsh consequence. He committed a harsh crime. $400,000 in fraud. That's not shoplifting a candy bar. That's serious. What about when he gets out? Will you have a relationship with him? I don't know. That depends on whether he actually learns from this or just resents me for not protecting him. 10 days after their arrest, Trevor and Crystal were still in jail. They couldn't make bail. The public defender assigned to their case called me. "Mrs. Chambers, I'm attorney Sarah Martinez. I've been assigned to represent your son and daughter-in-law." "I know why you're calling. The answer is no." "You don't even know what I'm going to ask." "You're going to ask me to drop the charges, or post bail, or say it was a misunderstanding. And my answer to all of those is no. Mrs. Chambers, I've reviewed the case. The evidence against them is strong. They're looking at significant prison time. If you were willing to show leniency, the prosecutor might agree to a reduced sentence. They committed fraud. They tried to steal my house. They told me to leave my own home. Why should I show leniency?" "Because Trevor is your son, and because Crystal is pregnant." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. What? Crystal is 8 weeks pregnant. She just found out last week, right before the arrest. If she goes to prison for 10 years, she'll have the baby in prison. The child will go into foster care or be raised by relatives without its mother. Is that what you want? I sat down, dizzy. Crystal's pregnant. Yes, I have medical documentation if you need to see it. Mrs. Chambers, I'm not saying what they did was right, but a baby didn't do anything wrong. That child doesn't deserve to grow up without parents. Let me think about it. We have a bail hearing tomorrow. If you could post bail. I said let me think about it. After I hung up, I called Martin. "Crystal's pregnant, did you know?" "No, but that doesn't change the criminal charges." "But Martin, a baby. If Crystal goes to prison, what happens to the baby?" "Born in prison, then either foster care or placed with relatives. It's not ideal, but it happens." Could I take the baby?" "You want to raise your son's child, while he and his wife are in prison for defrauding you." "I don't know what I want. I just know a baby shouldn't suffer for its parents' crimes." "Gloria, you need to be very careful here. If you show too much leniency, Trevor and Crystal will manipulate you. They'll use the baby as leverage. You know that, right?" "I know. But Martin, I can't let my grandchild go into foster care." "Then you need to make it very clear. You'll help with the baby, but only if they accept full responsibility for their crimes. No reduced charges. No deals. They plead guilty. Do their time, and you'll make sure the baby is cared for." "You think they'd agree to that?" "If the alternative is their child going into the system, yes." That evening, I called the jail and asked to speak with Trevor. "Trevor, your lawyer told me Crystal's pregnant." Yeah, Mom, please. We just found out. We can't have our baby born in prison. I'm aware. Will you help us? Post bail. We'll pay you back, I swear. Stop. I'm not posting bail, but I will make you an offer. What offer? You and Crystal plead guilty. You accept whatever sentence the prosecutor recommends. No fighting it. No appeals. You take responsibility for what you did. But we'll go to prison. Yes, and while you're in prison, I'll take care of the baby. Your child will live with me and Jessica. We'll make sure he or she is safe, loved, and cared for. You'd do that. I'd do it for the baby, not for you. But Trevor, this offer comes with conditions. You accept full responsibility. You admit what you did was wrong. You don't try to manipulate me or use the baby as leverage. And when you get out, you earn your way back into my life. No entitlement. No demands. You show me through your actions that you've changed. What if we say no? Then you go to trial. If you're convicted, which you will be, you get the maximum sentence. And the baby goes into foster care because I won't take a child whose parents refuse to take responsibility. Silence. I need to talk to Crystal. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, my offer expires. I hung up. Jessica was standing in the doorway. You're really going to take their baby? If they accept my terms, yes. That baby is innocent in all this. Aunt Gloria, you're 71 years old, raising a newborn at your age. I'll have help. You'll help me, right? Of course, but that's a huge commitment. I know, but what else can I do? Let my grandchild go into the system. I couldn't live with that. The next day, Sarah Martinez called. Mrs. Chambers, Trevor and Crystal have agreed to your terms. They'll plead guilty. They're asking for leniency in sentencing, but they'll accept whatever the judge decides. And they want you to take the baby. I need that in writing. A formal custody agreement. They sign over temporary guardianship to me while they're incarcerated. I'll draw up the papers. And Sarah, make sure they understand. This is a gift, not a right. I'm doing this for the baby, not for them. If they try to manipulate me or make demands, I'm out. I'll make that clear. 2 weeks later, Trevor and Crystal appeared in court for their plea hearing. I was there, sitting in the back row. They both looked terrible, thin, pale, defeated. The judge asked them to enter their pleas. Guilty, Your Honor, Trevor said. Guilty, Your Honor, Crystal echoed. The prosecutor presented the case. $400,000 in mortgage fraud, forged documents, identity theft, multiple federal crimes. Your Honor, the prosecutor said, the defendants engaged in a calculated scheme to defraud Mrs. Gloria Chambers, who is the defendant Trevor Chambers' mother. They forged her signature, created false documents, and fraudulently obtained a $400,000 mortgage on property they did not own. This was not a one-time mistake. This was premeditated fraud spanning several months. The judge looked at Trevor and Crystal with disgust. What do you have to say for yourselves? Trevor's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my clients deeply regret their actions. They were in financial distress and made terrible decisions. They're asking for leniency, particularly because Ms. Crystal Chambers is pregnant. They're willing to make full restitution and accept responsibility. Full restitution? With what money? You stole $400,000 and presumably spent it. They spent it paying off debts, Your Honor. Credit cards, personal loans. So they committed fraud to pay off their other debts. That's not mitigating. That's worse. The judge looked at the paperwork. I see here that Mrs. Gloria Chambers has agreed to take custody of the child during the defendant's incarceration. Mrs. Chambers, are you present? I stood up. Yes, Your Honor. This is very generous of you, given what your son and daughter-in-law did to you. I'm doing it for the baby, Your Honor, not for them. Understood. I'm going to take the pregnancy into account for sentencing, but I want to be clear. That's the only reason I'm showing any leniency at all. Mr. Chambers, Ms. Chambers, you committed serious federal crimes against your own mother and grandmother. You betrayed her trust, forged her signature, stole from her, and then attempted to evict her from her own home. This behavior is reprehensible. The judge reviewed the sentencing guidelines. Normally, mortgage fraud of this magnitude carries a sentence of 8 to 10 years. However, given Ms. Crystal Chambers' pregnancy and Mrs. Gloria Chambers' willingness to care for the child, I'm going to show mercy. Trevor Chambers, you are sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. Crystal Chambers, you are sentenced to 3 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. You will both be required to pay full restitution of $400,000 plus interest, which will be determined by the court. Crystal burst into tears. Trevor just stood there, stunned. However, the judge continued, I'm going to allow Ms. Crystal Chambers to delay the start of her sentence until after the baby is born and weaned. That gives her approximately 9 months of freedom. During that time, she will be under house arrest with electronic monitoring. Your Honor, the prosecutor objected, that's extremely lenient. I'm aware, but I'm not punishing an unborn child by having it born in prison if there's any alternative. Ms. Chambers will report to federal custody 1 month after the baby is born. That gives her time to deliver the child and ensure proper handoff to Mrs. Gloria Chambers. Crystal was sobbing openly now. Trevor looked at me with something like hope in his eyes. But the judge wasn't finished. Let me be very clear about something. This leniency is entirely due to Mrs. Gloria Chambers' generosity. She could have let your child go into foster care. She could have let you both serve full sentences starting immediately. Instead, she's shown you mercy you don't deserve. I suggest you spend your time in prison thinking about that, and when you're released, you spend the rest of your lives making it up to her. Yes, Your Honor, Trevor said quietly. One more thing. Mrs. Chambers, you have full legal custody of this child during the parent's incarceration. If either parent tries to interfere with your custody, makes demands, or causes problems, I'm authorizing you to petition the court for permanent custody. Do you understand, Mr. Chambers? Ms. Chambers, if you make your mother's life difficult while she's raising your child, you could lose parental rights permanently. We understand, Crystal whispered. Good. Mr. Chambers, you will report to federal custody in 2 weeks. Ms. Chambers, you will be fitted with an electronic monitor and remain under house arrest until your sentencing is carried out. Court dismissed. As we left the courthouse, Trevor tried to approach me. A bailiff stopped him. He was being taken back into custody to await transfer to federal prison. Mom, he called out. Mom, thank you. Thank you for doing this, for taking care of our baby. I looked at him, my son, who looked so much like his father, who'd thrown away everything I'd given him. I'm not doing it for you, Trevor. Remember that. Crystal approached me in the parking lot. She had a tracking monitor around her ankle now. Gloria, I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything. I'm sorry, I know that's not enough, but I'm so sorry for everything, for pushing you out, for the fraud, for being such a terrible daughter-in-law. Crystal, I need you to understand something. I don't trust you. I don't like you. The only reason I'm doing this is because that baby didn't choose to have criminals for parents. I know, and I'm grateful, really. Where are you going to live during your house arrest? I don't know. I can't go back to your house, it's being foreclosed. My parents won't take me. I don't have anywhere. I closed my eyes. I couldn't believe I was about to say this. You can stay with Jessica and me, but there are rules, strict rules. You follow them or you're out, understood? Really, you'd let me stay with you? For the baby's sake, not yours, you'll sleep in the guest room, you'll help with household chores. You'll go to all your prenatal appointments. You'll prepare everything the baby needs. And Crystal, you will not complain, you will not make demands. You will be grateful for every single day of freedom you have left. I will, I promise. Thank you, Gloria. And one more thing. You're going to write letters to your child. One for every year you'll be gone. So when they're old enough to understand, they'll know you loved them even though you weren't there. Crystal nodded, tears streaming down her face. That evening, Crystal moved into Jessica's apartment with us. It was cramped, 3 women in a 2-bedroom apartment, but it would have to work. Jessica pulled me aside. Aunt Gloria, are you sure about this, having her here? No, but what choice do I have? She's pregnant with my grandchild. I can't leave her on the streets. She tried to steal your house. I know, but she's also carrying my grandchild. I have to put that baby first. Over the next few months, an uncomfortable routine developed. Crystal was under house arrest, so she couldn't leave the apartment except for medical appointments. I went with her to every prenatal visit, listened to the heartbeat, saw the ultrasound images, watched my grandchild grow. It was a girl. They were having a girl. Crystal asked me what they should name her. That's up to you and Trevor. Trevor said you should choose, since you're going to be raising her. No, you're her parents. You pick her name. They named her Grace. Grace Evelyn Chambers, Evelyn after me. I cried when Crystal told me, not happy tears exactly, just complicated tears. During those months, Trevor sent letters from prison. To me, to Crystal, to his unborn daughter. One letter to me said, Mom, I've had a lot of time to think about what I did, about how I treated you. I was entitled, selfish. I took you for granted my whole life. You raised me alone. You worked so hard to give me opportunities, and I repaid you by trying to steal from you. I'm ashamed. I'm so ashamed. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know I finally understand what I did wrong. And when I get out in 5 years, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I love you, Mom. I should have said that more often. I didn't respond to the letters. I wasn't ready. But I kept them, all of them. Crystal was different during her months with us. Subdued, helpful, quiet. She cooked meals, cleaned the apartment, did laundry, never complained about the cramped space or the lack of privacy. One evening, about 7 months into her pregnancy, she asked to talk to me. Gloria, I need to say something. I know you don't want to hear it, but I need to say it anyway. Go ahead. I was a terrible person to you. I saw you as an obstacle, as someone taking up space in a house I wanted. I convinced Trevor to go along with my plans. The mortgage fraud, that was my idea. Trevor didn't want to do it, but I pushed him. I kept saying we needed the money, that it wasn't really stealing because Trevor would inherit anyway. I convinced him to forge your signature. Why are you telling me this now? Because I'm about to have a daughter. And someday, she's going to ask me why I wasn't there for her first 3 years. And I'm going to have to tell her the truth, that I committed crimes, that I was selfish and greedy. And I don't want her to grow up like me. I want her to grow up like you. Like me. Strong, principled, someone who stands up for herself, someone who doesn't let people take advantage of her. Gloria, I watched you these past 7 months. You took me in even though you hate me. You're preparing to raise my daughter even though I tried to steal from you. You're showing Grace I don't deserve. That's who I want Grace to be like. Not me, you. I didn't know what to say. Will you tell her about me? Crystal asked. When she's old enough, will you tell her I loved her even though I wasn't there? Yes. And will you let her visit me? In prison, or is that too much to ask? Crystal, she's your daughter. When she's old enough to handle it, I'll bring her to visit you. But I'm not going to force her if she doesn't want to go. That's fair, thank you. Grace Evelyn Chambers was born on a Tuesday morning in March. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Healthy, perfect. I was there for the birth, held Crystal's hand through the contractions, watched as my granddaughter entered the world. Crystal held Grace for the first hour, cried, whispered to her, told her she loved her. Then she handed Grace to me. Take care of her, please. Teach her to be strong. Teach her to value herself. Teach her everything I should have learned from you. I will. Crystal had 1 month with Grace. 1 month of sleepless nights and diaper changes and nursing. 1 month of being a mother before she had to report to federal prison. She spent every moment she could with Grace, holding her, singing to her, taking pictures, writing in a journal about every moment. On the day Crystal had to report to prison, Jessica drove us to the federal facility. Crystal held Grace the entire drive, crying silently. At the prison entrance, Crystal handed Grace to me one last time. Be good for Grandma Gloria, she whispered to the baby. She's going to take such good care of you, better care than I ever could. Crystal, No, it's true. You're going to be a better mother to her than I would have been. Just, please, tell her I love her. Every day, tell her I love her. I will. Crystal kissed Grace's forehead. Then she walked into the prison and didn't look back. Jessica drove us home. Grace slept in her car seat, oblivious to the fact that her mother had just left for 3 years. What now? Jessica asked. Now I raise my granddaughter. At 71 years old, I start over as a mother. We'll do it together, Aunt Gloria. I'll help. I know you will, sweetheart. Thank you. That night, I sat in the rocking chair with Grace sleeping in my arms. This tiny baby who'd been born into such complicated circumstances, who'd never know her parents for the first few years of her life. I thought about Trevor and Crystal, about their crimes, about their punishment, about the lives they'd thrown away through greed and entitlement. And I thought about that day they told me to leave, when they'd given me 60 days to vacate my own house. I'd told them I'd pack, but I hadn't just packed clothes. I'd packed evidence, documents, proof of their crimes. And that evidence had led to justice, had put them in prison, had protected my house, had protected my legacy. But it had also led to this moment, to me holding my granddaughter, to me raising a baby I hadn't expected to raise. Was it worth it? The criminal charges, the prison sentences, the broken family. I looked at Grace's sleeping face, at her tiny fingers wrapped around mine. Yes, it was worth it. Because Trevor and Crystal had learned a lesson they needed to learn, about consequences, about responsibility, about respecting others. And Grace would grow up knowing that actions have consequences, that you can't steal from people without punishment, that even family has limits. She'd grow up with the values they'd lacked, with the strength I'd shown, with the grace, her namesake, that comes from doing hard things for the right reasons. When Trevor and Crystal had told me to leave, I hadn't raised my voice. But I had packed something else. Justice. And it turned out, justice looked like a baby sleeping in my arms. A second chance at motherhood, an opportunity to raise a child the right way this time. Grace stirred in her sleep and made a tiny sound. I rocked her gently. Don't worry, little one, I whispered. Grandma's got you, and I'm going to make sure you never become like your parents. You're going to know your worth. You're going to stand up for yourself. You're going to be strong. She yawned and settled back to sleep. And I smiled. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The first year with Grace was both the hardest and the most rewarding year of my life since raising Trevor. At 71 years old, I'd forgotten how exhausting Bobbies were. The sleepless nights, the constant feeding, the worry over every little sound and movement. But I wasn't alone. Jessica was incredible. She'd wake up for night feedings when she could. She'd hold Grace so I could nap. She'd run to the store for diapers and formula when we ran out. Aunt Gloria, you should rest more. You're not 25 anymore. I'm fine. I raised Trevor mostly alone. I can handle one baby. But you're 71 now. That's different than being in your 30s. My body may be older, but my determination is the same. Still, I had to admit, it was harder than I remembered. My back ached from carrying Grace. My knees hurt from getting up and down. I got tired more easily. But watching Grace grow made it all worth it. Her first smile, her first laugh, the way she'd light up when she saw me. She was a happy baby, easy considering the circumstances of her birth. She rarely cried. She slept relatively well. She was curious and alert. At 3 months, she started trying to grab things. At 6 months, she could sit up. At 9 months, she was crawling everywhere. And I documented everything. Photos, videos, a journal where I wrote down every milestone. For Crystal, for Trevor, so when they got out, they could see what they'd missed. Crystal called every Sunday. The prison allowed one 15-minute phone call per week. How is she? How's my baby? She's wonderful. She rolled over this week, both directions. Did you get it on video? Yes, I'll bring it when I visit. I visited Crystal once a month. It was a 3-hour drive to the federal women's prison where she was housed, but I made the trip with Grace every month. The first time, when Grace was 2 months old, Crystal broke down crying at the sight of her. She's so big already. She's changed so much. Bobbies change fast. Can I hold her? That's up to the guards. They allowed it. 20 minutes of supervised contact. Crystal held Grace and cried the entire time. I'm so sorry, baby girl. Mommy is so sorry she can't be there. But Grandma Gloria is taking such good care of you. You're going to be okay. Grace just looked at Crystal with curious eyes. She didn't know this woman was her mother. To Grace, I was the only mother she knew. Trevor was in a different facility, 4 hours away in a different state. I visited him less frequently, every 2 months. He'd changed in prison, lost weight, looked older, tired. How's Grace? Beautiful, smart, happy. Can I see pictures? I showed him photos on my phone. He cried looking at them. I'm missing everything. Her whole first year. I'll never get that back. No, you won't. Mom, I know I don't deserve to ask this, but will she remember me? When I get out in 4 more years, will she know who I am? I show her your picture. I tell her about her daddy who loves her but can't be here right now. When she's old enough to understand, I'll explain what happened. Age appropriately, of course. Will you tell her we're criminals, that we stole from you? Eventually, yes. She needs to know the truth. But Trevor, I'll also tell her you loved her, that you made terrible mistakes but you're paying for them, that you're trying to be better. Am I trying to be better? Are you? He thought about that. I'm trying. I take classes here. Education classes, therapy. I'm working through why I felt so entitled. Why I thought I deserved everything without working for it. Good. And Mom, I've been saving my prison wages. It's not much, maybe 20 cents an hour. But I've saved almost $500 so far. When I get out, I want to start paying you back. For the fraud. For what we stole. Trevor, even at minimum wage, it would take you years to pay back $400,000. I know, but I need to try. I need to make restitution. It's part of my sentence, but it's also part of making things right. For the first time since this whole thing started, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe Trevor really was changing. Maybe prison was teaching him what I'd failed to teach him, responsibility. When Grace turned 1, I threw her a small birthday party. Just Jessica, me, a few of Jessica's friends, and my neighbor Mrs. Thompson who'd taken a liking to Grace. We had cake and balloons. Grace smashed her piece of cake all over herself and laughed. I took pictures of every moment. That evening, I video called Crystal on a special approved video call the prison had arranged as a gift. Happy birthday, baby girl, Crystal sang through the screen. Mommy loves you so much. Grace stared at the screen, confused. She didn't recognize this woman. Can you say Mama? Crystal asked hopefully. Grace looked at me and said, Mama. My heart broke for Crystal. Her daughter's first word had been Mama, but Grace had been looking at me, not her. That's wonderful, sweetie, Crystal said, her voice breaking. Such a smart girl. After the call ended, Crystal sent me a message through the prison email system. Thank you for giving her such a good life, better than I ever could have. She's happy. That's all that matters. Around this time, I got an unexpected call from the federal prosecutor. Mrs. Chambers, I wanted to update you on the restitution case. We've been seizing Trevor and Crystal's assets to pay back the $400,000 fraudulently obtained. What assets? They were in debt. They had some things of value. Trevor's car, we sold it for $15,000. Crystal had jewelry, another $8,000. We seized their remaining personal belongings and sold them at auction, $12,000. Their retirement accounts had about $35,000 combined. Total, we've recovered $70,000 so far. That's less than 20% of what they stole. I know. The reality is, you'll probably never recover the full amount. Most of it was spent paying off their debts, but we'll continue garnishing their wages when they're released. They'll be paying you back for decades. I don't care about the money anymore. I just want them to learn their lesson. I think they have. Their behavior reports from prison are excellent. They're both model inmates. After we hung up, I thought about the $400,000. Money I'd never see again. Money Trevor and Crystal had stolen and squandered. But looking at Grace playing with her toys on the floor, I realized something. I'd gained something worth more than money. I'd gained my granddaughter. A second chance to raise a child with better values. An opportunity to build something good from something terrible. When Grace was 18 months old, something unexpected happened. My house, the house I'd owned for 45 years, finally sold. The foreclosure had been completed. The fraudulent mortgage had been dissolved. And Jessica, as the legal owner, had put the house on the market. It sold for $675,000. Jessica called me the day the sale closed. "Aunt Gloria, the money is in my account, but it's your money. What do you want me to do with it?" "Put it in a trust, for Grace, for her education, for her future, so she has opportunities Trevor and Crystal threw away." All of it, that's $675,000. All of it. I'm 72 now. I don't need a big house or a lot of money. I just need enough to live comfortably and raise Grace. The rest should go to her future. Aunt Gloria, you're incredible. After everything they did to you, you're still thinking about their child's future. Grace is innocent in all this. She deserves every opportunity. The trust was established. $675,000 set aside for Grace's education, first home, or whatever she needed when she was older. Trevor and Crystal would never see that money, but their daughter would benefit from it. That felt like justice to me. When Grace was 2 years old, Crystal was released from prison. She'd served her full 3-year sentence with good behavior. I picked her up from the prison on a cold morning in March, exactly 3 years after she'd walked in. Crystal looked different, thinner, harder, older than her 35 years. She got in the car without saying anything, just stared out the window as we drove away from the prison. Finally, she spoke. "Where's Grace?" "With Jessica. I didn't think bringing her to the prison was appropriate." "When can I see her?" "Today, when we get home. But Crystal, we need to talk first, about expectations." "Okay." I pulled into a rest stop and turned to face her. "Grace doesn't know you. To her, I'm her mother. You're a stranger." "I know. You're going to have to build a relationship with her slowly. You can't just waltz in and expect her to call you Mama and love you immediately." "I understand. Where are you planning to live?" I don't know. My parents still won't take me. I don't have any money. I was hopping. Could I stay with you and Jessica, just temporarily, until I find a job and save enough for my own place?" I'd been expecting this, dreading it, but also knowing it was probably inevitable. "You can stay for 3 months. That gives you time to find work and save for a deposit on an apartment. But Crystal, there are rules." "Anything. I'll do anything." "You get a job immediately, any job. You contribute to household expenses, rent, food, utilities. You don't make demands about parenting Grace. You earn your role in her life. You attend counseling. And you follow the rules of your supervised release to the letter. One violation and you're back in prison. Do you understand?" "Yes, thank you, Gloria. You didn't have to do this." "I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for Grace. She deserves to know her mother, but you have to earn the right to be her mother." When we arrived at the apartment, Grace was playing with blocks in the living room. She looked up when we walked in. "Mama," she called, running to me. I picked her up. "Hi, baby. There's someone here who wants to meet you." Grace looked at Crystal with cautious curiosity. "Hi, Grace," Crystal said, her voice shaking. "I'm your mommy." Grace stared at her, then buried her face in my shoulder. "It's okay," Crystal said, tears streaming down her face. "It's okay, we'll take our time." Over the next few weeks, Crystal slowly built a relationship with Grace. She'd play with her, read to her, help with meals and bath time. But Grace still came to me when she was hurt or tired or scared. I was still Mama. Crystal was just Crystal, a nice lady who lived with us. It broke Crystal's heart. I could see it every time Grace chose me over her. But Crystal didn't push. She'd learned patience in prison. Crystal found a job at a local grocery store. It didn't pay much, $15 an hour, but it was honest work. She gave me $400 a month for rent and expenses. She attended her required counseling sessions, met with her parole officer weekly, followed every rule. And slowly, very slowly, Grace started warming up to her. At first, it was small things. Grace would bring Crystal a toy to play with. She'd sit next to her during story time. She'd let Crystal help her with her shoes. Then one day when Grace was 2.5, she fell and scraped her knee. She cried and ran to Crystal. Crystal looked at me with shock and joy as she comforted Grace. "It's okay, sweetie. You're okay. Let's clean up this OE." I felt a strange mix of happiness and sadness. Happy that Grace was bonding with her mother, sad that I was slowly being replaced. But this was what was supposed to happen, I reminded myself. Crystal was Grace's mother. I was just the grandmother who'd stepped in. 3 months turned into 6 months. Crystal saved enough money for a deposit on an apartment, but I told her she could stay longer if she wanted. "Are you sure? I thought you wanted me out." "I wanted you to be independent, to prove you could stand on your own. You've done that. If staying here makes financial sense and helps you build a relationship with Grace, you can stay." "Thank you, but Gloria, I do need to find my own place eventually, for Grace's sake. She needs to know I'm her mother, not just another person living in Grandma's house." She was right. As much as it hurt to think about Grace leaving, Crystal needed to establish herself as Grace's primary parent. When Grace was almost 3 years old, Crystal moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment across town. She'd saved enough for first and last month's rent plus a security deposit. The custody arrangement we worked out was gradual. Grace would stay with me during the week and spend weekends with Crystal. After a few months, if things went well, we'd transition to Grace living primarily with Crystal. The first weekend Grace spent at Crystal's apartment, I cried after dropping her off. "She'll be fine," Jessica assured me, "and she's coming back Sunday." "I know, it's just, I've been with her every day for 3 years. It's hard to let go." "You're not letting go. You're letting her mother parent her. That's what's best for Grace." Jessica was right, but it still hurt. Sunday evening, Crystal brought Grace back. Grace ran to me chattering about her weekend. "Mama Gloria, we went to the park, and we had pancakes, and I slept in a big girl bed." "That sounds wonderful, sweetheart." Crystal smiled. "She did great. She asked for you a few times, but she was happy." "How did it feel, having her there?" "Terrifying, wonderful. I kept thinking about how much I've missed, but also grateful I get this chance at all." Over the next year, the custody transition continued. By the time Grace was 4, she was living with Crystal full-time and visiting me every Wednesday and every other weekend. It was hard. The apartment felt empty without her, but I could see Grace was thriving. She had a relationship with her mother. She was happy, well-adjusted, loved. Trevor was released from prison when Grace was 4.5. He'd served his full 5 years. I picked him up from prison, just like I'd picked up Crystal 2 years earlier. He looked different too, older, thinner, but also somehow more solid, more grounded than he'd been before prison. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, Trevor." We drove in silence for a while. Finally, Trevor said, "I've been in prison for 5 years. I've thought about what I'd say to you when I got out. I've practiced it 1,000 times, but now I don't know where to start." "Start with the truth." "The truth is I was a terrible son. I took advantage of you my whole life. I let Crystal manipulate me into committing crimes against you. I tried to steal your house, and you had every right to press charges and let me rot in prison. But I didn't let you rot. I took care of your daughter." "I know. Mom, I don't understand why. After everything I did to you, why did you take care of Grace?" "Because she's innocent, and because despite everything you've done, you're still my son, and I love you, even when I don't like you very much." He started crying. I don't deserve your love. No, you don't, but love isn't about deserving. It's about choosing. And I choose to love you even though you hurt me. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I don't want your life. I just want you to be better, to be the man your father would have been proud of. How do I do that? By taking responsibility, by working hard, by being a good father to Grace, by paying me back not just the money but the trust you broke. I will, I promise. Trevor moved into Crystal's apartment. They were technically still married. Neither had filed for divorce during their prison sentences. They wanted to try to make their marriage work for Grace's sake. I was skeptical. They'd committed crimes together, gone to prison together. Could they really build a healthy relationship after that? But I kept my doubts to myself. It was their decision to make. Trevor got a job in construction. It didn't pay well, $18 an hour, but he was grateful to have work at all with a felony record. Between Trevor's construction job and Crystal's grocery store job, they made about $60,000 a year combined. It wasn't much, but it was honest money. And they started paying me back. Every month, they sent me a check for $500. It would take them 67 years to pay back $400,000 at that rate, but I appreciated the effort. Grace was thrilled to have both her parents. She'd known Crystal for 2 years, but Trevor was new. "Daddy," she'd squeal when he came to pick her up for visits. It should have made me happy, and part of me was happy. But another part was heartbroken. I'd raised Grace for 3 years. I'd been the one she called Mama. And now I was being relegated to Grandma Gloria, important, but not primary. Jessica saw me struggling. "Aunt Gloria, you did the right thing. You gave Grace her parents back. That's what she needed." "I know, it just hurts." "Of course it hurts. You raised her as your own, but look at what you accomplished. You took a baby whose parents were in prison and gave her a stable, loving home. You kept a family together when it could have fallen apart. You're a hero." "I don't feel like a hero. I feel like I'm losing another child." "You're not losing her. You're just sharing her. And Aunt Gloria, Grace loves you. That little girl adores you. That will never change." Jessica was right. Grace did love me. And our Wednesday visits and weekend sleepovers were special. We'd bake cookies together, do crafts, read stories, go to the park. I was still important in her life, just in a different way than before. On Grace's 5th birthday, we had a big party. Trevor, Crystal, Jessica, some of Grace's friends from preschool, and me. Grace was happy, surrounded by people who loved her, opening presents, eating cake. At one point, she climbed into my lap. "Mama Gloria, thank you for my party." "You're welcome, sweetie. Daddy says you took care of me when he and Mommy couldn't. Is that true?" "Yes, baby, that's true." "Why couldn't they take care of me?" I looked at Trevor and Crystal. We talked about this moment, about when to tell Grace the truth. "They made some mistakes," I said carefully. "Big mistakes, and they had to go away for a while to make things right, but they love you very much, and they're here now." "Will they go away again?" "No, sweetie, they're staying right here with you." "Good, and you'll stay too, right? You won't go away." "I'm not going anywhere. I'll always be here for you." She hugged me tight. "I love you, Mama Gloria." "I love you too, Grace." Later that evening, after the party was over and everyone had left, Trevor asked to talk to me alone. "Mom, Crystal and I have been discussing something. We want to ask you about it." "What?" "We've been living in that tiny apartment for 2 years. It's cramped. Grace is getting bigger. She needs more space. And honestly, we need more space." My heart sank. "Are you asking me for money? Trevor, we've been through this." No, we're not asking for money. We're asking for your blessing. We want to buy a house." "A small house. Nothing fancy. We've been saving every penny we can, and we have about $25,000 for a down payment. We want your blessing to do this, to build something for Grace." I felt tears forming. This was the Trevor I'd always hoped he'd become. Responsible, hardworking, thinking about his daughter's future. "Of course you have my blessing. I'm proud of you both, for working hard, for saving, for putting Grace first. Thank you, and Mom, we wanted to name you as Grace's guardian, in our wills. If anything happens to us, we want you to raise her. You've already proven you're the best person for the job. Trevor, I'm 73 years old. And you're strong and healthy, and Grace loves you. Please, we trust you more than anyone in the world. Okay, yes. If something happens to you, I'll take care of Grace, always. He hugged me, a real hug, the kind we hadn't shared since he was a little boy. Thank you, Mom, for everything, for raising me, for raising Grace, for not giving up on us even when we deserved it. You're the strongest person I know. I'm just doing what mothers do. No, most mothers would have washed their hands of us after what we did. You didn't. You held us accountable, but you also gave us a chance to make it right. That's extraordinary. That night, lying in bed, I thought about the journey from that day Trevor and Crystal had told me to leave. I'd been so hurt, so angry, but also determined. I hadn't raised my voice. I'd simply packed. But I'd packed more than clothes. I'd packed evidence, justice, a future. And now, 5 years later, I was watching that future unfold. Trevor and Crystal had paid for their crimes. They'd learned their lessons. They were building a life for themselves and Grace. Grace was happy, healthy, loved by both her parents and her grandmother. And me, I was content, proud, at peace. I'd done the right thing, even when it was hard. Even when it meant sending my own son to prison. Even when it meant raising a baby at 71. Even when it meant letting go of that baby when her parents were ready to parent her. I'd done the right thing. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. 2 years after Trevor's release from prison, life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Grace was 7 years old now, thriving in second grade, and splitting her time between her parents' modest 3-bedroom house and my apartment with Jessica. I was 75, still active and healthy enough to keep up with an energetic 7-year-old, though I'd started using reading glasses and my knees complained more than they used to. Trevor and Crystal's house was small but filled with love. They'd bought it with their $25,000 down payment, a 1,200-square-foot ranch in a decent neighborhood with good schools. The mortgage payment was tight on their combined income, but they managed. Trevor had been promoted to foreman at his construction company. Crystal had moved from the grocery store to an office job doing administrative work. Together, they made about $75,000 a year, not rich, but stable. And they still sent me $500 every month toward restitution. In 7 years since their arrest, they'd paid back $42,000 of the $400,000 they'd stolen. It would take decades more to repay the full amount, but I didn't care anymore. The money wasn't important. Their growth was. One Sunday afternoon, Grace and I were baking cookies at my apartment when she asked a question I'd been dreading. Mama Gloria, why did Mommy and Daddy have to go away when I was a baby? She was 7 now, old enough to understand more than the simple, they made mistakes, explanation I'd given her before. Let's sit down, sweetheart. This is a grown-up conversation. We sat on the couch. Grace looked at me with those serious brown eyes, Trevor's eyes. Your mommy and daddy made some very bad choices when you were about to be born. They took money that didn't belong to them, from a bank, and they lied to get that money. Like stealing. Yes, exactly like stealing. And when you steal, especially a lot of money, you have to go to jail. Did they steal from you? I hesitated. How much truth was appropriate for a 7-year-old? Yes, they tried to take something that belonged to me. Your house. She was sharper than I'd expected. Yes, my house. How did you know? I heard Mommy and Daddy talking once. They were saying they were sorry for trying to take your house. I didn't understand what they meant. Your parents made mistakes, Grace, big, serious mistakes, but they paid for those mistakes by going to prison. And when they came out, they became better people. They work hard now. They're honest. They're good parents to you. Were you mad at them? Yes, very mad and very hurt. Are you still mad? I thought about that carefully. Was I still angry? After 7 years, after watching them rebuild their lives, after seeing them become the people I'd always hoped they'd be. No, sweetheart, I'm not mad anymore. I'm proud of them. They made terrible mistakes, but they took responsibility. They went to prison. They're paying me back. They're trying to be better. That's all anyone can ask. Is that why you took care of me? Because they were in prison? Yes, but also because I love you. You're my granddaughter. And I wanted to make sure you had a good life, even though your parents couldn't be there. Grace was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Then she asked, "Do you wish they hadn't done those bad things, so you didn't have to take care of me?" My heart broke. Oh, Grace, no, taking care of you was one of the best things I've ever done. Those 3 years I had you all to myself, they were a gift. Yes, I wish your parents hadn't committed crimes, but I don't regret one single moment of raising you. Really? Really? You saved me, Grace. I was 71 years old when you were born. My son had betrayed me. I'd lost my house. I felt old and tired and done. But then this tiny baby needed me, and suddenly I had purpose again. You gave me that. She hugged me tight. I love you, Mama Gloria. I love you too, baby girl. That evening, I called Trevor and told him about the conversation. She asked about prison. I told her the truth, age-appropriate truth, but truth. How did she take it? Better than I expected. She's a smart kid, Trevor. She can handle knowing her parents made mistakes. Did you tell her we tried to steal from you? I mentioned it. She already knew somehow. She overheard you and Crystal talking. Damn, I didn't think she was listening. Kids hear everything. Trevor, she's going to have more questions as she gets older. You and Crystal need to be prepared to answer them honestly. We will. We've been talking about this. We know eventually she'll want to know the whole story, and when she's old enough, we'll tell her everything. We won't lie to her like we lied to you. Good. Mom, can I ask you something? Do you think Grace will forgive us? When she knows the whole truth? When she knows we went to prison and missed her first 3 years because of our own greed? I think Grace will understand that people make mistakes, that you paid for those mistakes, that you're better now. Kids are more forgiving than adults, Trevor, especially when they can see genuine change. I hope you're right. 3 months later, on a Tuesday afternoon, I got a call that changed everything. Mrs. Chambers, this is Dr. Patel from St. Mary's Hospital. Trevor Chambers was brought in by ambulance about an hour ago. My heart stopped. What happened? He was injured in a construction accident. A scaffolding collapse. He's in surgery now. It's serious. How serious? Life-threatening. You should come to the hospital as soon as possible. I called Jessica immediately. Trevor's been in an accident. We need to go to the hospital. Now. Jessica drove us there. I called Crystal on the way. Crystal, Trevor's in surgery. Scaffolding collapse, it's bad. She was crying. I'm getting Grace from school and we'll be right there. At the hospital, we waited, and waited, and waited. 4 hours of surgery. 4 hours of not knowing if my son would survive. Crystal arrived with Grace. Grace looked scared. Mama Gloria, is Daddy going to be okay? I don't know, sweetheart. The doctors are helping him. Grace climbed into my lap and cried. I held her, my own tears falling into her hair. Finally, Dr. Patel came out. Family of Trevor Chambers. We all stood up. Trevor survived the surgery, but his injuries are extensive. Broken back, crushed pelvis, internal bleeding. We've stabilized him for now, but the next 48 hours are critical. Can we see him? Crystal asked. Immediate family only, and only for a few minutes. He's unconscious. Crystal went in first. She came out 15 minutes later, sobbing. He looks so broken. There are tubes everywhere. I can't believe this is happening. Grace wants to see him, I said. Is that appropriate? Dr. Patel hesitated. It might be scary for a child. She needs to see her father. Trust me. If something happens and she didn't get to see him, she'd regret it forever. They let Grace and me go in together. Trevor looked terrible, pale, bruised, bandaged, multiple machines beeping around him. Grace gasped and grabbed my hand. "It's okay, sweetheart. Daddy's sleeping while his body heals. He can hear you, though. You can talk to him." Grace approached the bed slowly. "Daddy, it's me, Grace. I need you to get better, okay? You have to come home. You promised to help me with my science project, and we're supposed to go to the park next week, so you have to wake up." She kissed his hand. "I love you, Daddy." For the next 2 weeks, Trevor remained in critical condition. Some days he'd improve slightly. Other days he'd take steps backward. Crystal practically lived at the hospital. She'd take time off work, unpaid leave she couldn't afford, to sit by Trevor's bedside. I kept Grace during this time, took her to school, helped with homework, tried to keep her routine as normal as possible. But Grace knew something was seriously wrong. "Mama Gloria, is Daddy going to die?" "I don't know, sweetheart. He's very hurt, but the doctors are doing everything they can." "If he dies, what happens to me and Mommy?" "Your Mommy will take care of you, and I'll help. We'll all be okay." "But what if Mommy gets too sad? What if she can't take care of me?" "Then I'll take care of you. Grace, no matter what happens, you will always be safe and loved. I promise you that." On day 16, Trevor woke up. Crystal called me, sobbing with relief. "He's awake." He opened his eyes. He squeezed my hand. "Gloria, he's going to make it." I felt like I could breathe again. "Thank God. Can I bring Grace to see him?" "Yes, please. He's asking for her." That evening, Grace and I went to the hospital. Trevor was still weak, still in pain, but conscious. "Hey, princess," he said when he saw Grace, his voice raspy. "Daddy," she ran to him carefully, mindful of all the equipment. "I'm sorry I scared you, baby. Daddy had an accident at work, but I'm going to be okay." "Promise." "Promise." Trevor would survive, but his recovery would be long and difficult. He'd broken his back in 3 places. He'd never be able to do heavy construction work again. He was looking at months of physical therapy, possibly more surgeries, and permanent limitations on what he could do physically. Which meant he couldn't work, which meant no income. Crystal had to go back to her office job. They needed the money desperately. But someone needed to take care of Trevor during his recovery. "Mom," Crystal said one evening at the hospital, "I don't know what to do. Trevor needs round-the-clock care for at least the next 3 months. I can't afford to quit my job. We'll lose the house. But I can't leave him alone all day." "I'll take care of him," I said. "What? No, you can't." "Why not? I'm retired. I have time. I raised a baby at 71. I can certainly care for my injured son at 75. But after everything he did to you." "Crystal, that was 7 years ago. 7 years of watching Trevor work hard, take responsibility, and be a good father. He's paid his debt. I'm not going to abandon him when he needs help." So for the next 4 months, I became Trevor's primary caregiver. Every morning, I'd go to Trevor and Crystal's house, help Trevor with his physical therapy exercises, make his meals, help him to the bathroom, keep him company. It was exhausting. My back ached, my knees hurt. Some days I wondered if I was too old for this. But I kept going, because Trevor needed me, and for the first time in his adult life, he truly appreciated my help. "Mom, I don't know how to thank you for this." "You don't need to thank me. I'm your mother. This is what mothers do." "But after what I did..." "Trevor, we've been through this. You paid for what you did. You went to prison. You're a different person now, I see that. And I'm proud of the man you've become. Even though I'm broken and can't work, and you have to wipe my... Even though all of that, you're still my son, and you're doing your best with a terrible situation." One afternoon, about 3 months into Trevor's recovery, he said something that surprised me. "Mom, I've been thinking about the house, your old house that you lost because of us. Trevor, that house is gone. It sold years ago. Jessica put the money in a trust for Grace." "I know, but Mom, you lost your home because of me. The house you lived in for 45 years, the house Dad bought with you. The house where you raised me, and you've never blamed me for that. Would blaming you bring the house back? No, but it would be justified. Mom, I stole your legacy, your memories, everything Dad left you, and you've never thrown it in my face. What good would that do? Trevor, I can't change the past. Neither can you. We can only move forward. But I want to make it right. Somehow. I've been paying you $500 a month toward the $400,000. At this rate, I'll be dead before I pay it off. But there has to be something I can do. Some way to make restitution that's actually meaningful. You're already doing it. By being a good father to Grace. By working hard. Well, you were working hard before the accident. By showing me you've changed. That's the restitution I need. Is it enough, though? Does it make up for what I did? I thought about that question carefully. Trevor, nothing can make up for betrayal. Nothing can give me back those years of feeling hurt and angry. But forgiveness isn't about making up for things. It's about choosing to let go of the hurt so it doesn't poison you. I've forgiven you. Not because you've earned it, though you have worked hard, but because holding on to anger was hurting me more than it was hurting you. Thank you, Mom, for everything, for raising me alone, for teaching me right from wrong even though I didn't listen for a long time, for taking care of Grace when I couldn't, for giving me a second chance, for being here now, for being the kind of mother I didn't deserve but desperately needed. We both cried then, years of pain and healing crystallizing in that moment. 6 months after the accident, Trevor was finally able to walk again with a cane. He'd never be 100% recovered, but he could function independently. He couldn't go back to construction. The physical demands were too much. But he found a job doing safety inspection and training for construction companies, using his experience to help prevent accidents like the one that had nearly killed him. The pay was less than before, about $45,000 a year, but it was something. Combined with Crystal's income, they could still make their mortgage payments. Barely. But they were making it, working together, supporting each other, being the partners they should have been from the beginning. When Grace turned 8, I threw her a birthday party at my apartment. Trevor, Crystal, Jessica, and several of Grace's school friends attended. Grace had grown into a beautiful, thoughtful child, smart, kind, strong, everything I'd hoped she'd be. At the end of the party, she stood up and made an announcement. I want to say something to everyone. Mama Gloria told me that when I was born, my mommy and daddy made mistakes and had to go away. And she took care of me. And now my mommy and daddy are back and we're a family. But Mama Gloria is still my family too. So I'm really lucky. I have 3 parents instead of 2. And I want to say thank you to all of them for loving me. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Later that evening, after everyone had left, Trevor pulled me aside. Mom, Crystal, and I have been talking. We want to do something for you, something important. Trevor, I don't need anything. Please let me finish. When I got hurt when I was lying in that hospital bed thinking I might die, I realized something. You've spent your entire life giving to me. Your time, your money, your energy, your love. And what have you gotten in return? Betrayal, heartache, an exhausting 7 years of fixing my mistakes. That's not. It is, and it's not right. So Crystal and I have been saving every extra penny we could spare. We've saved $15,000. Trevor, you need that money. We want you to use it to travel. You used to talk about wanting to see Italy, to visit Paris, to go on the trips you and Dad had planned before he died. We want you to do that. Go to Europe. Go anywhere you want. This money is our gift to you. Use it for yourself for once. I started crying. Trevor, I can't accept this. Yes, you can, because you've earned it. 1,000 times over. Please, Mom, let us give you something. Let us show you that we appreciate everything you've done. I looked at my son, at the man he'd become, the man who'd spent 6 months flat on his back thinking about what mattered, who'd emerged from that experience wanting to give instead of take. Okay, I whispered. Okay, I'll go to Italy. Good, and Mom, take Jessica with you. You two deserve a real vacation together. Grace will stay with us. We'll manage, I promise. 3 months later, Jessica and I were on a plane to Rome. 2 weeks in Italy, Rome, Florence, Venice, the Amalfi Coast, everything I'd dreamed of. Trevor and Crystal and Grace drove us to the airport. Grace hugged me tight. "Have fun, Mama Gloria. Take lots of pictures." "I will, sweetheart. You be good for your mommy and daddy." "I will. I love you." "I love you too." Trevor hugged me last. "Thank you, Mom, for everything, for not giving up on me, for being the kind of person worth becoming. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be more like you." "Just be the best version of yourself, Trevor. That's all I ask." Italy was magical. Jessica and I ate pasta and gelato, toured museums and cathedrals, walked along cobblestone streets, and laughed until our stomachs hurt. For 2 weeks, I wasn't a mother or a grandmother or a caregiver. I was just Gloria, a woman experiencing the world, living the life I'd always dreamed of. On our last night in Venice, Jessica and I sat at a cafe overlooking the Grand Canal, watching gondolas float by in the twilight. "Aunt Gloria, this trip has been incredible. Thank you for letting me come with you." "Thank you for coming. I wouldn't have wanted to do this with anyone else." "Can I ask you something? Do you have any regrets about how you handled Trevor and Crystal, about pressing charges, about everything?" I thought about that question. Did I have regrets? No, I don't regret pressing charges. They needed to face consequences. I don't regret raising Grace. She brought joy into my life when I needed it most. I don't regret taking care of Trevor after his accident. He'd earned that kindness. Even though it's been exhausting. Jessica, I'm 75 years old. I've lived a full life. I raised a son alone. I survived betrayal and fraud and heartbreak. I raised my granddaughter. I watched my son transform from an entitled criminal to a responsible father. I've seen redemption happen. How many people get to witness that? Not many. So no, I have no regrets. My life has been hard, but it's been meaningful. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. We flew home 2 days later. Trevor, Crystal, and Grace picked us up from the airport. Grace ran to me with a sign she'd made. "Welcome home, Mama Gloria. We missed you." I hugged her tight. "I missed you too, baby girl." That evening, back at my apartment, I looked through the hundreds of photos from Italy. Beautiful moments captured forever. But my favorite photo wasn't from Italy. It was one Trevor had sent me while I was gone. A picture of him and Grace at the park. Grace on a swing, Trevor pushing her, both of them laughing. The caption read, "Thanks for teaching me what really matters, Mom. Love you." I'd spent my entire life giving. To Trevor, to Grace, to others who needed me. And for a long time, I'd felt taken for granted, used, unappreciated. But looking at that photo, I realized something. When Trevor and Crystal had told me to leave, when they'd tried to steal my house, when they'd forced me into the position of packing and leaving, I hadn't just packed clothes. I'd packed evidence that led to justice. I'd packed determination that led to raising Grace. I'd packed strength that led to rebuilding my family on my terms. I'd packed everything I needed to not just survive, but to create something better from the wreckage. And now, at 75 years old, I could see the fruits of that packing. A son who'd learned accountability, a daughter-in-law who'd learned humility, a granddaughter who was growing up with values and love, a family that had been broken and reformed into something stronger. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not raise your voice. Sometimes it's staying calm, packing carefully, and taking with you everything you need to rebuild. 7 years ago, Trevor and Crystal thought they were getting rid of a burden, an old woman who was in their way. They didn't know they were losing their anchor, their safety net, their best chance at becoming better people. But I'd given them that chance anyway, not because they deserved it, but because I chose to. And that choice, that decision to pack evidence instead of just anger, to demand justice instead of just revenge, to raise Grace instead of letting her suffer, to forgive instead of holding grudges forever, that choice had saved us all. My phone buzzed. A text from Trevor. "Grace wants to know if you'll come to her school play next week. She's playing a queen. She says queens need their grandmothers in the audience." I smiled and texted back, "I'll be there, front row." Because that's what grandmothers do, what mothers do, what women who have survived betrayal and rebuilt their lives do. They show up, they forgive, they love. Especially when it's hard. I'd packed something else that day, I realized. Something more important than evidence or clothes. I'd packed hope. Hope that people could change. Hope that justice could lead to redemption. Hope that broken families could heal. And that hope had carried us through 7 years of consequences and transformation and growth. That hope had brought us here, to this moment, to a family that was imperfect but real, damaged but healing, human but trying. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. If this story touched you, please subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell for more emotional stories like this. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Somewhere out there, I might be reading.